Morning, everybody. How are we? Good. Thank you for joining us here today. It feels like ages since we've been here. I do see some familiar faces that have joined us here before. But quick show of hands, who's here for the first time? Quite a few, actually. Yeah, okay. You're very welcome, and some of our old-timers as well. It's great to see you guys again. My name is Carl Lumsden. I'm an agency manager here in Ireland, and together with my colleague Lindy, we look after the Breakfast Briefing series. So, I think particularly this morning, we're in the middle of a status orange weather warning, so kudos to you guys for actually making it in. The alarm went off for me this morning at 5:45 to get the train in from Skerries. Anyone beat 5:45 a.m? Quite a few. Okay, you're okay. Challenge accepted. It's great, but genuinely, thank you for being with us here today. As I said, it's been a little while since we've done one of these. I think it was the start of December. So a few months has passed. It's been a little bit of there's been some change. We've had 2019 planning going on, looking back at how we did in 2018 as well. So there's been a lot of stuff going on, but we're really excited that you're here with us today. I think for me as well, today is a really, really important one because today we're going to be talking about smart bidding. Smart bidding is one half of what we're kind of billing as our smart solutions package, right? And it's going to be really, really important for us and indeed for you guys for 2019. Why is it so important? Excuse me. We're going to be talking today about how we can give you time back, how we can take away perhaps some of those manual tasks, maybe some of the time that we spend on digging into bidding and am I bidding the right amount, and ultimately how can we actually be more efficient for the business, get better results, and as I said, give you guys time back to maybe look at some of those more strategic opportunities for the business. So quick show of hands, I just want to help my speaker who I'm going to introduce in a moment. Quick show of hands, who here is from, say, a media agency or a creative agency? Okay, a few. Who here would classify themselves as being part of a startup or an SME of sorts? Okay, any students or lecturers in the room? A few. And anyone else that I haven't covered off there? A few Googlers, you don't count. And the lady at the back, where? Not a student, not in agency land, not in an SME. Do you want to tell us? Okay, very good. Okay. So look, you're all welcome. And as I said, today is all we're going to be talking about smart bidding, okay, and why it's so important. I will tee up very quickly that the next breakfast briefing, we're going to go back to the rigor. I know that today was not the first Friday of the month, which it has been for a long time. The next one, we'll go back to the first Friday of the month in March, and from there on afterwards, we'll get back into that rigor. I would say as well, for any of you that are going to be sending out social media posts or anything like that, it's #GoogleBB. And also, for those of you that, if you want to try and scribble down notes, by all means, you're free to do so, but it will be recorded, it will go up onto YouTube on the channel Google and YouTube Ireland, so you can find the content afterwards there, and we will email it out to each of you afterwards as well. Okay, let's get on with it. So I want to introduce Tom Gillespie in just a moment. So Tom looks after some of our largest, and I suppose some of our most strategic clients as well, and has really kind of developed a talent and a knack for optimizing their bidding strategies. So Tom has been working with us in that regard for the last 2 or 3 years, and he leads on that across the UK and Irish market for us as well. I'm going to hand it straight over to him. He is my favourite Australian, not just because he's the only Australian in my team, but please give a warm round of applause for Tom.
Morning, everyone. How are we doing? So, very excited to be here and very appreciative of you all making the effort, especially in the wind. And for those who were up at 5:45 this morning, I thought I had a tough start. So, I am a product expert within the UK team, and my focus is helping advertisers, big and small, get the most from Google's smart bidding solutions. So, outside of that, I'm a rugby tragic, a long-time suffering Wallabies fan, a struggling golfer, and an avid Game of Thrones fan. So I've popped in a few subtle references in the presentation that hopefully you'll enjoy. And just to preface at the beginning, we'll be running a competition at the end to see if you've all been paying attention. So to kick things off, in terms of an agenda of how I've structured it today, because we have varying levels of experience and backgrounds, I've framed it in a way so then pretty much everyone trying to make it as applicable as possible to as many of you as possible. And making sure that you can feel confident in walking away from today and be able to leverage smart bidding in your accounts and for your business. And I know that there's always a particular desire or nitty-gritty that we want to jump into, so more than happy to take some of your questions at the end of today's session as well. So just to kick things off and just energise the room, blow the cobwebs off on a Friday morning, some of the veterans here may have played Guess the Fact before within Google presentations, so I've tried to spruce it up a bit. So can anyone, welcome suggestions from the crowd, can anyone tell me what this number might mean within the Google universe? Ooh, searches per minute. Searches per day, correct. So 3.6 billion searches happen on Google every day. Now 15%, what could this number refer to? Nailed it. Not his first rodeo. Question, what could this number be? And as a clue, it was probably slightly higher this time last week. I'll be very impressed. So this is the Irish rugby team's IRB world ranking at the moment. Currently sitting behind New Zealand, but I'm still very confident on Ireland's chances later this year. So 80%, what could this number be? So this was the results found in a Boston consulting group survey a couple of years back, where they found that digital marketers were spending 80% of their time on manual tasks such as bidding, leaving only 20% for strategy. So that's a huge strain. If we're dedicating 80% to the nuts and bolts, that's a huge strain on your marketing resources. So if anyone gives this, I have a couple spot prizes, but if anyone can guess this, you'll be getting a lucky door prize to kick things off. I wish. No, this is the number of days until the Game of Thrones Season 8 premiere, but who's counting? So, before jumping into bidding, it's valuable to remind ourselves in terms of who we're trying to reach, and these are your most valuable customers. So, in today's mobile-first world, customers have more control than ever before. They can instantly and effortlessly find the answers to their questions in just a few taps or chop and change between different devices. And as marketers, that's making your job harder. So if the behaviour is changing, what does that consumer journey look like? And where do we as marketers believe that we can have the greatest impact in that journey? So traditionally, we were taught to master the funnel from a linear journey from awareness to consideration to purchase. However, today it can be much more complex, with fragmented digital journeys with multiple touchpoints across networks, platforms, and devices. And at each touch point, these peaks represent the varying levels of intent for that customer journey. So instead of me just talking about it in the abstract, I thought I'd give you a walkthrough example of one of these convoluted customer journeys. So leading up to Christmas last year, I thought I might treat myself for a new driver. As I was saying, struggling golfer, I have a grandpa swing, thinking that a new driver is going to be able to give me the ability to swing like this gentleman. So, best driver 2018. Now, these are my keywords, but there are very different signals for every auction within every single search on Google. And even though the users might be searching for the exact same thing, the user context often differs. So we can see I'm searching maybe on 3 p.m. on my Samsung, definitely not searching at work. And then the magic number here is my expected conversion rate of my likelihood to convert off searching for that keyword. But then it gets interesting. So in steps my beautiful fiancée Morgan, and she also thought it might be a bit clever to surprise me with a new driver for Christmas as well. So here we have the exact same keyword, but very different signals. Morgan, a first-time searcher of Best Drivers 2018, and probably isn't spending nearly as much time on YouTube or looking at golf websites as I am. And then to throw a spanner in the works, we have my mum, Nicole. So an avid golfer, the best one in our family. And she was working away to surprise her son returning from Dublin back to Canberra for Christmas. And she was also potentially looking at getting me a driver for Christmas. So, but as far as, so all varying different levels of intent, but still searching off the same keyword. So what does this tell us? We have one product for the same person being searched in very different ways. And then how we, as marketers, meant to be bidding appropriately to that customer journey. And if anyone's looking for a good deal on a new driver, I've got a couple to spare. So, as customer behaviour has evolved over time, has bidding evolved as well? So not so long ago, search was centred just around your keywords and bids. Advertisers could select keywords related to their offering and set bids based on the likelihood that that keyword would convert. And they would only have to worry about one device, and they'd have to write a couple of ads and then set the campaign to work. So fast forward, with the introduction of mobile and audience lists, advertisers now have more signals to take into consideration, and these are more variables that we are putting into the equation, such as time of day, the interest, the device that they might be searching on, or the location. So if we were bidding now, you have the opportunity to utilise signals from Google, from users, and your own customer data. You've got to pick out the exact data point and then for each auction, and then set a strategy around it. So the central issue here is what was once finding a needle in a haystack, that haystack has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And to try and find that needle in this haystack manually can be a consuming and sometimes impossible task for even the most advanced customers. So this is where machine learning steps in. So machine learning leverages signals from over 1 billion users across Google's 7 diverse platforms, giving us access to real-time user intent and insights that can be used to power your digital strategies. So why Google Smart Bidding? Now, firstly, this is an often lost fact, is that Google's actually looking at queries, not keywords. So in that golfing example, we're all searching, we might feel that we as advertisers that we have all the keywords under the sun that my customers might be searching for, but that one keyword could be triggered from 10 different queries. So it also reacts in real time at each individual user with all signals in the entire picture in tandem, as opposed to manual bidding or some third parties which aren't able to see the full picture and are then bidding to a set of averages. So it's not just the customer behaviour that's evolved that has made our bidding strategies have to evolve, but it's also evolved based off the valuable feedback and insights that you're providing us. And even just in the last year, some of the updates that we've seen to be included into the smart bidding algorithm is the likes of smarter audience signals. So instead of just being able to factor in first-time visitors or returning users, we're now also being able to calculate the value of customers on your in-market lists or detailed demographics. Secondly, we've made our interface much more simpler and transparent because we found that we wanted to be making sure that we're surfacing actionable recommendations for you guys, as well as being able to see how the campaigns are performing as opposed to keeping it as a black box. And then finally, one of the biggest barriers was now that for particular smart bidding strategies, in the past you'd required a certain number of conversions and data coming through your account before you could take advantage of them. Now, for the likes of strategies such as maximise conversions and target CPA, which we'll be touching on later, you can use those on campaigns with little to no conversion volume. So selecting the right bid strategy. There is a tool for every task and a task for every tool. This wise man was Tywin Lannister. And that is the end of my Game of Thrones references in this presentation. So why I called this out is because before selecting a bidding strategy, it's not everyone should be using the same. We should always be asking, it's the different horses for courses. So we want to be asking ourselves first and foremost, what is the goal of this campaign? And like all good campaigns, it should be single-minded. So this is depending on kind of what we're wanting to drive, so whether it's awareness, or if we're trying to drive just as many clicks, or if we're in the business of driving conversions and conversion value, this should be informing our decisions on the strategies that we should use. So in terms of the fully automated Google Smart Bidding solutions, these are conversion-based metrics. They are focused on conversion-based metrics. So they're looking to be driving conversions, improving your conversion rate, improving your CPA, or driving your conversion value. Often people can probably get hung up on either selecting the wrong strategy for their wrong goal, or they get upset when metrics that aren't conversion-based start changing, whereas that's not their original intent. So it's important to remind ourselves that these 3 strategies are all conversion-focused. So we obviously need conversion tracking in your accounts to be able to take advantage of them. But I call this out is because once we are setting these strategies live, they're going to be bidding to what's inside your conversions column. So if you have very shallow conversion actions, and then like maybe page visits versus a more macro, deeper conversion such as purchases, the bidding systems are going to, depending on whether it's conversion value or the conversion total, it will be bidding towards what's inside that conversions column. So as I said before, so the 3 smart bidding strategies that we're diving into today are maximise conversions, target cost per acquisition, and target return on ad spend. So has anyone in the room or shout out any experience with working with maximise conversions or what we might be using it for? If not, perfectly fine. So maximise conversions is when we're trying to drive as many conversions as possible within your allocated budget. Now, target CPA, any guesses here? Boom, nailed it. So trying to drive, this is for advertisers where you have a particular goal in mind and we want to be driving as many leads, say for example, driving as many leads as possible within those goalposts. So finally, when it comes to target return on ad spend, any guesses? So this is where we're looking to be driving as much conversion value as possible and working to your ROI goals. Excuse me. So these figures down below are the figures that we typically see in uplift for our advertisers when they've followed best practice and adopted these strategies versus just manual bidding alone. So I'm going to walk us through the 3 different bidding strategies in terms of the use cases for them, maybe the type of business models or advertisers that we've seen using them, as well as some of the requirements that we want to stay on top of. So looking at maximise conversions, it automatically sets your bids as, to get you as many conversions as possible within the campaign's budget, and it also helps you spend it as efficiently as possible. So as far as use cases, businesses that I've worked with have been big and small. They've been everyone from small business owners to startups to advertisers running very short flighted activity, and especially with maybe people where budgets are very tight and there's no flexibility in changing them. So in the past, in some bidding strategies, we would say that having limited by budget or a small impression share might be leaving the handbrake on a particular performance for that campaign. So this is actually the opposite for maximised conversions, where it thrives under these conditions. So in terms of requirements, all we need to be working towards is making sure that we are obviously tracking conversions, but it doesn't require conversion history, so we could be starting them from day one, and that it also isn't able to work within a shared budget. So the biggest call out for maximised conversions is here, that would just be emphasising that it will look to spend your daily budget. So I know some advertisers feel that they might try and be gaming the system if they set an incredibly high daily budget to give the system indications that they want to spend a lot of money, but have never any intent on going that close. So before using maximised conversions, make sure that you're happy to spend what's in your daily allocated budget. So moving on to target CPA. So similar to maximised conversions is trying to drive as many conversions, but within a particular goalpost that we're aiming for at your target cost per acquisition. So businesses that have used these that I've worked with, it's often either e-commerce businesses or lead generation business, where we're just trying to get as many leads as possible, many of X as possible at this desired price. So in terms of use cases, I've touched on these just there, but as far as kind of like the requirements, again, all we need is just tracking conversions. So finally, in terms of target return on ad spend, and this bidding strategy is one that maybe for some of my more advanced advertisers where they've dipped their toe in the water with smart bidding before and they're looking to level up and they have a greater understanding in terms of the margins of their products or maybe the value of the leads that they're trying to drive. So target return on ad spend is focused on driving as much conversion value as within the goalpost. So for every $1 that I'm putting into AdWords that I want $2 back, we would be setting our return on ad spend we would be setting the goalposts at 200%. As far as use cases, interesting scenarios on this one is when there are maybe particular leads that are incredibly valuable to us, or that maybe not all leads are created equal. So I want to be driving more form fills than, say, maybe phone calls, or particular destinations are worth, or destinations or products are worth of higher margins, and this is what I'm operating towards and what I want to drive. As far as the requirements, this is the only one that does have a few prerequisites that need to be met, and that is the conversion volume in the last 30 days. We need to have seen at least 15 conversions passing through conversion value. So if we're an e-commerce store that we've sold 15 cards ahead of Valentine's Day next week in the last 30 days. So then the system is then able to understand what is the ROI that it's driving. And obviously, the more conversion volume, the better. So moving over to the common hurdles that I've experienced with some of my advertisers. And for one reason or another, some people in the room may have tried smart bidding in the past and now they're not doing it anymore. But the purpose of this section is to try and put some of those doubts and fears at ease, as well as explaining in terms of some of the learnings that we've had on if we have these implemented from the beginning, we can save ourselves a lot of headache. So there's kind of 4 types of hurdles I've been able to kind of classify these into. So the first one being, it didn't work last time, Tom. I tried it last time, it didn't work. Often I might hear my CPCs have shot through the roof, or it spent through all my budget, or it was missing the target after a couple of days and I pulled the plug. Sounding familiar to anyone in the room? Yeah, a lot of smiling faces. So you're not alone, but the main thing that I encourage all of my advertisers in this scenario is that patience is king. And I thought in terms of, I'll ask you to take a trip down memory lane to the early memories of Joe Smith's, at the beginning of Joe Smith's career, taking over the Irish rugby team. So back in 2013, November, his first 3 games in charge, all playing at home, he had a 33% win record, looking pretty dire. He'd also given up a 19-point lead to the All Blacks. Did they panic? No. Because in their next 5 matches, they were the Six Nations champions. So if Joe Smith's running your AdWords campaign, patience is king. And there's 6 key areas that we can look at in terms of if we followed these 6 simple steps. Sorry, I'll get out of the way. There's a lot of people taking photos. 6 key steps where if we followed these, we would have saved ourselves a lot of headache. So first and foremost, it is not setting too aggressive of a target. So take target CPA, for example. This is where I want to drive as many leads as X price. Now, some advertisers who have maybe been burnt by this is like, oh, well, it didn't hit my target. Whereas like, well, what did you get historically over the last 30 days? Like, oh, well, normally they come through at 20 euros. Like, okay, what did we send the target at? 10. And it's like, oh, okay. Now, the reason that probably didn't work is that we want to just get through the learning period as smoothly as possible, and not asking it to bend over backwards in its infancy is really important. So again, when we set our targets, you're not anchored to that target for the rest of eternity. You can look to adjust over time. It's just more to kind of get through the learning period as easily as possible. So secondly, analysing performance when it's still in learning. Again, as advertisers, we might be too much into behaviour of it's just like, well, how's this Friday compared to last Friday? Or it's like, oh, well, I turned it on Wednesday, it's still not working, I'm not going to give it a chance, I'm pulling the plug. And that's because the learning period, it really should be viewed as a control period, and it's just trying to find that sweet spot in the bids. So performance is most likely to be fluctuating when it is in learning. So it's too early for us to be judging performance. And then the third point is looking at the wrong metrics. So for those instances where it's like, oh, well, CPC shot through the roof. Well, that's because maximised conversions isn't looking to drive cheaper CPCs. Maximised conversions is trying to drive as many conversions as possible within your budget. So it's making sure that we're looking at the right metrics and not getting hung up on the wrong criteria. So in terms of the next 3 points, the first, that would be the budget. We want to be allocating room to grow within that budget. So this is particularly for target CPA. If we've set the budget, if in that example you were driving €20 conversions and you've set your daily budget 40, in a best case scenario, we could maybe get 2 conversions in one day. So again, for that learning period, and if budgets are flexible, that's where we would recommend to uncap the budget during that learning period so it's able to find that sweet spot. If budgets are quite tight and we can't move, then that's then more of a conversation where maximised conversions could possibly be the best fit. So the 5th point here is overlooking a high conversion delay when analysing performance. Now that's a lot of Google jargon. That is essentially referring to your customer behaviour from the time that they are clicking and the time that they're converting. So if I'm a travel client selling holidays off to Australia, that researching journey is going to be quite long. I'm not just going to book a flight tomorrow, I'm probably going to do a bit of homework. And that means that you could have people clicking on your ads today, but not converting until maybe a week or a couple of days or 2 weeks' time. So that's where we want to account for that conversion lag. So then when we're judging the performance, we've accounted for all the potential activity in that time frame. And then finally, what we want to be avoiding is making constant changes, and especially when starting out the campaign. So people might be looking at it, they see the spike in CPCs, their budget starts getting a bit higher, they start to panic and they start making all these changes. And what's happening is that we're resetting the shot clock on your learning period. So we're just kind of like slowly dragging off that Band-Aid instead of just being patient and just kind of waiting in one fell swoop. So please avoid making changes. So the next barrier that I've heard for smart bidding is for some of my advertisers where it's not able to handle my busiest period. It's just too important, we can't miss. And these were a lot of the conversations we were having last year with both retailers and lead gen customers, but particularly for those involved with Black Friday and Christmas sales last year. So the good news for that, if we were expecting a large volume of customers coming through to your website, the more the merrier. So the more volume with smart bidding, the better it performs, the more that we have to learn and bid within. So unless we're expecting a change in our conversion rate, which I'll be touching on in the next slide, smart bidding strategies will be able to handle that form of seasonality quite fine. So it's more in terms of making sure that leading to those busy periods, that you've set your targets to what you're hoping to achieve, and then depending on the volume coming through, making sure that we're not leaving the handbrake on with limited by budget and missing those potential customers who are obviously in the mood to be purchasing. So how does smart bidding work during seasonal events? It's taking in kind of 2 things. So when choosing the target for smart bidding, always keep in mind that for sales events, most often the goal is driving volume as possible. So therefore, when we're setting our targets, we want to be setting it to where we can capture that additional volume. If historically all of my customers are then coming up at 20 euros in that example, but I know that more and more people are coming through in this short time frame, and I want to capture that volume at the expense of maybe my margins, I would increase my target so that I'm able to go after more. The other one to be taking into account is your conversion cycle. So on average, it will take at least 1 conversion cycle for the smart bidding algorithms to adjust. So a conversion cycle, when people are clicking on ads and when they're converting, it will give you that time frame. So say your time lag is 4 days. We would allow 4 days for the smart bidding algorithm to adjust to its new target, if not sooner. Same thing as well, once that seasonal decline has occurred, that's when we would wait for 1 conversion cycle to then readjust your targets back to kind of your business as usual targets. So we've classified kind of 2 seasonal activities, one being the longer trends where it's 2 days or more versus those in terms of a sudden spike. So for those 2 days or more, so we're looking for maybe like leading up into the Christmas sales, or that we're looking to book a ticket for the National Plough Championships in County Carlo. What we need to do, we don't need to worry about anything as far as our targets. If we're happy with the targets that we have set for the campaign, then the algorithms will be able to handle those gradual increases in seasonality. Same thing as well, it's worth calling out that smart bidding learns from customer behaviour on a particular day of the week in the past. So seasonality due to a day of the week is explicitly accounted for. So in terms of those second scenarios, the more sudden spikes. So sudden spikes where our conversion rate could be doubling in a very short space of time. So a Black Friday sale, or if Ireland was to win their quarter final, there's going to be a sudden influx of flights from Dublin to Yokohama later this year. That is when we would need to take into account, do I need to be adjusting my targets because the algorithm might not have enough time to adjust. So that's where we would be looking to understand, based off maybe previous activity, like, well, how did my Black Friday go last year? And then based off that, when did that conversion rate change? So when I'm talking about conversion rate, it's like it's operating to normally, we have a conversion rate of 3%, but then if it was to double the day before Black Friday to 6%, we know that, okay, so this is the day that the algorithm's probably going to need a bit of assistance, and that's where we would look to adjust your targets accordingly to be able to capture that volume. So if you were operating on target CPA and your targets are 20 euros, to capture more volume, we would increase your target CPA. So now I'm willing to pay 25 or 30. Then if we were operating to target ROAS and we're bidding to ROI and we want to be capturing that more volume, capturing that greater volume, and your target is 200% return on ad spend, to capture that additional volume, we would lower the targets down. So we would lower it to maybe 175 or 150 because now we're willing to take in more to capture all of that volume in that seasonal activity. So the third barrier is for some of my advertisers where they feel that the conversion volumes coming through in their account isn't reaching the necessary volume, or that the smart bidding systems won't be able to predict kind of like these very few and far between conversion actions and bid to that right value. So this is where we're able to step in with portfolio bidding strategies. So is hands up of anyone using these in the room or have come across these before? Oh, perfect. Very good. So for those who don't know, portfolio bidding strategies are they're an automated goal-driven strategy where you're able to consolidate several campaigns to work towards one shared goal. So instead of in the past where we might have a handful of campaigns that are only getting a very low conversion volume in the past, if we're working towards a similar goal in terms of I just want as many leads at this price, we could then be driving as much as this much ROI, you can consolidate those torso and tail campaigns to now work. So instead of 5 campaigns in isolation, they're now one kind of Transformers super campaign. The prerequisites in kind of calling this one out is that within search, you can kind of like bundle up as many as you like. But then if we were looking to be doing it we can bundle up as many as we like if we're using target CPA. However, with target ROAS, the campaigns that we would be including still need to have at least 15 conversions passing through conversion values in the last 30 days. So I know this one's more often one of the more popular topics. Is there any kind of questions just quickly on this one at all? Or if not, we can kind of tick along. Okay, perfect. So, and then the final barrier is often down to when I'm working with some of my advertisers in the UK, and they're like, Tom, I get it, I love it, I'm completely bought in. Just like my boss or my team, they don't get it. And it's easy for me to say this where it's just like, oh, why can't we just whack it on? But it is you, the advertisers, who are sticking your neck out on the line within your internal teams or for your clients, which is very easy to understand, completely appreciate. So this perfect solution here in terms of how we can take that very low risk, dip our toe in the water to see what is the best strategy for us, is utilising drafts and experiments. So again, is anyone familiar with drafts and experiments or using it often? Yep. So for those who don't use it as often, drafts and experiments gives you a powerful tool to A/B test particular elements within any campaign across search and display. So when we're working with drafts, this is as if you were kind of like looking to making changes to a campaign, but don't want to be setting them live. And then the experiment arm is then you're able to test these in an A/B setting whether it might be manual bidding versus target CPA. And then we can see the performance over time and what is driving the better results. So it's just a safe space to be able to learn and give you that empirical data to then take back to your stakeholders to determine whether or not smart bidding is actually going to get the best performance for your campaigns. And then same thing with this, like all smart bidding strategies in the drafts and experiments, it's worth calling out that we're focusing on the right metrics. So in 4 to 5 weeks' time, we're not going to look back and say it's like, oh, well, my CPC's jumped up or my impressions dropped. We're going to be looking at the conversion-based metrics. Did my conversions improve? What does my CPA look like? Did my ROI improve? Those are the factors that we're going to be judging the performance on. So we're not going to be judging Johnny Sexton in terms of how many tight head scrums he's going to be winning on the weekend. So in terms of setting ourselves up for success, in 4 easy steps, again, always making sure that we're selecting the right bid strategy for that campaign. Secondly, we want to be setting realistic targets, so then we're getting through that learning period as smoothly as possible. The third step is then identifying your learning period. So this is good just to understand what that baseline, what that control period is, and then when we can expect to start seeing targets being hit more regularly. And then the final one as well is avoid making drastic changes to a campaign. Because if we were to get through your learning period and then make a huge wave of changes, that could then potentially reset the shot clock and we're starting again from square one. So in terms of how do we go about getting started, for the likes of target CPA or target return on ad spend, we want to be selecting those campaigns where there is flexibility on budget, so there's headroom for it to grow, as well as on the impression share. So if you find that some of your campaigns are quite limited by budget and or have very limited impression share, then maximise conversions is probably the better fit for you guys. In terms of if we're not looking to kind of like jump straight into to a fully automated strategy, we would recommend doing the drafts and experiments. And then, like always, when we're setting those campaigns live from the very first day, we've set a realistic target to work towards. We're not asking it to bend over backwards or it simply just won't work. And then in terms of when we're looking to evaluate the performance, I'll be getting that into the next section. So, too soon. So yeah, in terms of evaluating performance, we just wanted to allow at least, we would normally say kind of like within a 4 week or 30 days, that's kind of, if not sooner, but conservatively, if we're allowing 30 days before judging performance, that would be the ideal time frame. So, and is anyone familiar with these or has popped their head recently into the recommendations tab? So this is a really straightforward and easy way in terms of surfacing the best campaigns that could, the best campaigns for an uplift in performance with a smart bidding strategy. So logging into top left-hand corner recommendations, and then you can either select filter purely by bids and budget, but this section here, bid more efficiently with target CPA, this is kind of putting in a nice little tiny corner within your account all the best campaigns and your warmest leads that will see the biggest uplift. So in terms of evaluating performance, so we've set it live, we've set realistic targets, we wait and see, I haven't made many changes, how do I go about judging that performance? So firstly, we've established our learning period and how long that is, because that's giving you your control period. And secondly, we want to be looking into our conversion lag. So I've touched on it this a couple of times before, but this is really important in terms of when we can kind of look at that hard stop date on judging the performance of the campaign. So the conversion lag, again, is the time between someone clicking on the ad and converting. And this isn't something that we can really change. This is just more customer behavior. So for those who don't know where they can find it, it's within the search attribution section of your account, which you can see with the wrench in the top right-hand corner. But factoring in the time lag here, and if I was judging the performance of smart bidding campaigns or how long I need to allow that fat before kind of judging it. So you can change it from first impression to first click to last click, but using the example of it's taking around 4 days for 100% of my conversions to be accounted for. So I've clicked on an ad on Friday, then if we were judging the performance on Sunday, It's just like, oh, we're still missing a fair few of our targets. However, there's still customers that won't convert until the 12th of February. So that's why we just want to account for that in our reporting. So we've gone through, we've set the bidding strategy live, we've established our learning period. So this is the baseline, and we're not going to count this within our reviewing the performance. So then then we were looking at a pre and a post control. So that's when, once we're through learning, we haven't made any drastic changes. We're looking at, like, is it hitting those target metrics? So is my target CPA being achieved, or my target return on ad spend? And we're comparing apples with apples. So, and then we've factored in the time lag as well. So in that 4-day scenario of the one before, if we were judging the performance of these 2 weeks, I would allow 4 days to pass, and then I would look in the rearview mirror of that 2-week period, because we will have accounted for the additional activity of all our customers to convert. So just to recap before we jump into the game, so smart bidding has gotten smarter, and it's in our best interest for you guys to succeed as much as possible, and we believe smart bidding strategies will give you those best results. So more often than not, we want to be making sure that we're asking ourselves, what are the goals of this campaign, and then selecting the most appropriate strategy for that campaign. Thirdly, much like our Joe Schmidt example, is that we're setting ourselves up for success, and we're avoiding those potential headaches, because 9 times out of 10, the keys to smart bidding success is just patience. And then finally, when we're judging the performance of these campaigns, we're looking at the right metrics to be making sure that is it hitting the targets that has been achieved, and giving you guys the best results. So I think that's it from myself. So who's been paying attention? So for those of you who haven't played Kahoot before, if you could just pop out your phone or your laptop or whatever you might have with you. So you just want to go to kahoot.it. And then just enter that PIN and your nickname. So just a heads up, so you'll have 20 seconds to answer each question. It's going to be multiple choice. So the questions are going to be on the big screen, and on your phones or your laptops, you're going to have 4 colours to hit within the corresponding question. So, and it is fastest finger, so it's the risk reward. You're getting more points the faster you get it, but obviously you don't want to get it wrong and then someone overtake you. Okie dokie. So, 6 questions. So, what does TCPA stand for? I almost accidentally said it out loud. So, target clicks per assumption, target cost per Australian, trusted computing platform alliance, or target cost per acquisition? Perfect. So the answer was target cost per acquisition. So, okay, so what strategy should I use if I want to drive as many conversions as possible within my budget? Maximize clicks, maximize conversions, maximize currency, maximize customers. Perfect. Okay, so a lot more success there. Maximize conversions is the answer. So here we have. So what is a safe amount of time before evaluating a smart bidding test? A couple of days this week compared to last week, less than 2 weeks, or 30 days? Perfect. So the answer is 30 days. Better to be safe than sorry. All right, so Ty's breaking away. Okay, what is the minimum number of conversions required for target return on ad spend? So 30 conversions, 15 conversions, 15 conversions with conversion value, or you can use it from day one. Ooh. So the hidden factor there was it's got to be passing through conversion values. So that's trimmed the herd a bit. Okay, so second last question. What is the easiest way to A/B test any change within search or display campaigns? Experiments and observations, drafts and experiences, Dungeons and Dragons, or drafts and experiments? Okay, all right, so a bit better than the last question. Drafts and experiments is the way to test. So, a few shocked faces out there, oh dear. Okay, so last question. What should I factor in before evaluating smart bidding performance? Determining my learning period, refer to conversion-based target metrics, factor in my time lag, or all of the above? Okay, perfect. Yep, answer is all of the above. So because no one got the Game of Thrones answer right at the beginning of the presentations, I've got 2 up my sleeve. So the winners, in first place we have Endor. So could I, Endor and Val, if you want to come up and collect the prize. Endor or Val? Are you Endor? Endor? Okay, so you got first pick, so you got the perfect. Well done. Oh, whose car? Oh. Here, wait, can we go? No, because it was Endor and Val, so you might have gotten. So.
That's me, C.
C. Oh, Val, very sorry. I will sort you out with a prize. That's my fault.
No, that's not right.
No, I'll just go and get it. No. Like, I've got it. No, it's not an issue at all, guys. That's my fault. So, Val, please don't disappear. I'll sort you out. That's entirely my fault.
Okay, guys, thanks. Can we get a round of applause, please, for Tom, guys?
Sorry.
I think it's fair to say Tom is our new gift champion. I mean, we had Anchorman in there, we had The Lion King, references to Game of Thrones, rugby, everything in there. So thanks again, Tom, for that. So, folks, we have a couple of minutes. We're going to take a quick Q&A from the audience. Probably got time for maybe 3-4 questions. So now's your chance. I'm going to grab the mic. So if you have a question for Tom, please put up your hand and we'll get a mic to you. Okay, you can see one in the middle. So I'm going to have to involve a few people to pass this back. So I might ask you to throw this behind you. The lady can just put her hand up again in the middle. Thank you.
So is this just looking at conversions that are in AdWords and is it not going all the way through to analytics? Because the attribution models on analytics are far superior to what you get in actual AdWords, and it changes the bid strategy.
Yep, very good question. So if you're importing those conversions from analytics into AdWords, then it's fine. So
it's not just using Conversion Optimizer?
No.
Okay, great.
Yeah, but very good question.
Any other questions, guys, for Tom? Now's your chance. Okay, just behind you, actually, just over your right shoulder. Thank you.
What driver did you buy?
So funny enough, I lost my driver a little over a year ago. And when we were moving floors within the office, and my driver, I lost it, and I was like, oh God, it's lost. And then I held off getting it because I was going to, for Christmas, I was like, oh, well, I'll do the driving fitting back in Ireland so I can get it customised and all that jazz. And then when I was helping a friend pick up her post down in the garage the other day, and there was a lost and found, and there was a rickety old golf clubs of mix and match clubs, and my driver was there, and I was like, oh my God. So I've held off pulling the trigger on the driver. I've actually got to do some practice with it before I need a new driver to fix my swing.
Maybe time just for one more, folks, and then we'll let you go. So just over the far side, actually, this gentleman over here. Thanks.
Oh, good hands.
So do you run all three of them or choose one of them?
You would just choose one. So it's only one strategy per campaign. So that's why always useful to be asking ourselves kind of like, well, what is the goal of the campaign? Because if it's not about driving conversions, if it's more purely just an awareness play or capturing a certain amount of impression share, there are actually other bid strategies that you would be able to use within a Google Ads account. But for conversion or conversion value-based strategies, you would choose, we would recommend looking at one of those three based on kind of the goals that you're trying to hit.
Okay, and if you've got three products, you could try, depending on what you want to get.
Yeah, so in terms, you have three products, or?
Yeah, and we're looking to drive free trials for the product. Big Red Book and Bigger Cloud is the name of the company.
Okay, so then in that, and then what's the conversion action?
Is to take a 30-day free trial.
Okay.
So either for our desktop, our cloud, or our payroll.
Okay. So, and you'll have three different conversion actions?
Correct.
So in that instance, if you're using maximize conversions or target CPA, it's going to try and drive as much as possible. So obviously your keywords are going to look to appear and capture different customers searching for the different products. So we wouldn't maybe expect too much cross-pollination between someone who's started on a cloud product but then converting for one of the other products that you're selling. So target CPA would be able to work if for that particular, if you have campaigns that have very strict keywords and maybe cloud products are worth more than the other products, then I would give the cloud product the highest target CPA to capture that. Alternatively, because this is a common bit of feedback from advertisers looking for, of like trying to be very specific for one campaign to go after one conversion and not to kind of muddy them up. So there are enhancements coming further down the line later this year that will allow us to do that. But what we could be doing today is, if in your conversion column, in your three different conversion actions, and you're passing through accurate revenue figures to those conversion actions, that is then how we're now treating conversion actions with different value. Because you could say it's like, well, I want to drive this much value from this product, so I'm going to set my target return on ad spend to 200%, but then maybe the more valuable ones that we're trying to drive, you would then set it at a higher target return on ad spend. Does that help?
Yes, thanks. What's your handicap?
So when I quit my job in Australia before moving over to Australia, I went from 31 to 18 in a month, and then I was unemployed in London for 6 months. So the swing has fallen apart. So I won't play. I haven't got a registered handicap in Ireland, but I won't play with anything higher than 18. Otherwise, I'm just a burglar. So no one will play golf with me.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks, folks. So thanks, Tom, again, for the presentation. Thank you for your questions. As I said, the content's going to be shared out with all of you anyway, so you can go through this in some more detail when you get back to the office. The recording will be up on Google and YouTube Ireland channel. I'd encourage you to go and have a look back at that as well. But for now, one more final round of applause, please, for Tom.
Thanks, guys.
And we will be back in 3 weeks' time for the second part of this on smart creatives and how smart creatives and smart bidding can work together. Thanks, guys.